Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and share some ideas and experiences as a visual artist with all of you. So I know nothing about the thromboembolism. I learned a lot and it's very fascinating. So I would like to start with the first um, slide here. While I was trying to learn a little bit about this thromboembolism, I found this fascinating painting. So this is the story of Raoul. Raoul, the first case of DVT. Raoul, a 20-year-old Norman cobbler, suffered unilateral pain and swelling of the right calf that subsequently extended up to the thigh. Raoul's surgeon, Henry Deperche, advised him to wait and see. Unfortunately, the patient's symptoms worsened and he developed a leg ulcer. After additional unsuccessful, unspecified treatment attempts, Raoul was advised to visit the tomb of King Saint Louis. He spent several days praying to the saint, and then he decided to collect the dust that he found below the stone that covered the tomb, and he applied it directly to the ulcer. The story reports that he was miraculously healed after this direct application and was still alive 11 years later. This story belongs to 1275, almost 13th century. Well, what made me interested to look at this story was all of these amazing colors and storytelling through the images. So I started looking at it. I give you a couple of seconds, look at the images and try to find out the story and see what's going on here. Ten years ago, my father, who is a famous artist in Iran, was diagnosed with a stage 4 endocrine pancreatic cancer. He also suffered from thromboembolism to his lung when he was receiving chemotherapy. Well, he has a very supportive characteristic with a strong personality. One of those people that you never believe they become ill. After he found that, his first reaction, of course, was a mixed feeling of confusion, anger, frustration, sadness, and hopelessness, which was in stark contrast to his strong personality. I knew his expression through art will help him to not only cope with the situation, but also he will survive. Maybe that was a big promise to myself, but it worked. He started getting treatments, but at the same time, he started doing painting. His colorful paintings started to becoming a combination of dark color palettes. All of the paintings he has created during that time are dark, extremely texturized, and aggressive. Of course, painting wasn't the physical treatment for him, but discharging the expression and emotion through creating art was the magical treatment for his anxiousness and hopelessness. You can see all of his feeling during that time in these two paintings. His cheerful colors are back today. He's living like a normal person. He's 73 now. Thinking about your feeling as a person suffered a leg blood clot, you find out the swelling and painful leg is the result of occluded vessel and blood not flowing well anymore. Thinking about your feeling as a person suffered thromboembolism to your lung, feeling short of breath, and going through difficult moments when your body challenging to catch up with oxygenation, what you should do. Despite being in the hands of great doctors and having access to great hospitals and medications, you still feel frustrated. Unfortunately, most of the time, we forget to look inside ourselves. We forget to hear our inner voice and be connected to ourselves. Even being privileged by having the company of a good friend who's willing to listen to our story doesn't necessarily help us to be able to cope with our situation emotionally. Art, either creating it or viewing others' art, it used to help you to explore emotions, develop self-awareness, cope with the stress, boost self-esteem, and work on social skills. In fact, art can be an effective tool in mental health treatment. This is called art therapy. Before I continue, I invite you to look at this image and translate it for yourself. The first reaction I received when I offered this to people with no experience in visual art is, I have zero talent. But please be aware that no matter if you are a professional artist or someone who never touched any art materials after elementary school, art is an expressive medium which can help you to overcome your stress and explore different aspects of your personalities and abilities while dealing with your disease. Like a pulmonary embolism you suffered from, and like taking medication. Art therapy can be done by yourself or with the help of an expert. The process of creating art, which can be as simple as playing with colors, lines, and shapes, is improving mental, physical, and emotional wellness. You can use any techniques such as drawing, painting, coloring, sculpting, and collage. But why visual art? In this process, like the first slide that I shared, the story of Raoul, you will be able to analyze what you are making and how it makes you feel. You have a story to tell, and others can look for theme conflicts that may be affecting your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Also, colors are the reflections of inside expression and can identify emotions. Again, remember that you do not need artistic ability or special talent to do art therapy. At this point that we are talking about thrombosis, I would like to share two interesting paintings inspired by thrombosis. This has done by an artist who's been diagnosed by thrombosis. That's his emotion, that's his inspiration. When you're talking about the thrombosis and you're suffering, you think how I can draw it, how I can discharge my stress on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a beautiful painting, but it might be, you don't know. So keep your smile and try to discharge your stress on a piece of paper. The next painting is done by Scott Mescale, an artist who was commissioned to spend time with the patients with thrombosis. After a while, he showed the heart as a grenade. That's very interesting. So you can do the same thing if you feel that way. And look at the colors. But at the same time, I can see some cheerfulness in the colors. Well, at this point, I would like to share some fascinating example of two celebrated artists, very famous artists, who will suffer from thromboembolism. The first one you might be familiar with is Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo, a Mexican artist who was married to Diego Rivera and is still admired as a celebrated artist and a feminist icon. Artist Frida Kahlo was considered one of Mexico's greatest artists who began painting mostly self-portraits after she was severely injured in a bus accident. Around the age of 6, Kahlo contracted polio, which caused her to be bedridden for 9 months. While she recovered from the illness, she limped when she walked because the disease had damaged her right leg and foot. On September 17, 1925, Kahlo was in a terrible bus accident and suffered several serious injuries as a result, including fractures in her spine and pelvis. She began painting during her recovery and finished her first self-portrait the following year, which she gave it to her boyfriend. Despite her personal challenges, her work continued to grow in popularity and was included in numerous group shows around that time. I have to add, when Frida started doing the painting, she didn't believe that she's a very good artist. So she used the painting as a way of discharging the stress, only doing her own portrait, and she was just happy with them. And she even didn't think that she's going to be famous one day. She would just keep working in the bed also. These are some of her work that she continued to show herself and her problems through her art. In 1939, Kahlo went to live in Paris for a time. There she exhibited some of her paintings and developed friendships with such artists as Marcel Duchamp and Pablo Picasso also. The second artist that I would like to mention today is a famous American artist, Chuck Glass. Chuck Glass, almost his entire life has been a disaster physically. He survived a spinal blood clot to paint again. That is his story. Glass was 11. His life became pure hell. His father died, his mother, a trained pianist who in the Great Depression gave up her aspirations for concert career, got breast cancer. They lost their home because of medical fees. His grandmother was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and Klaus, an only child, spent most of the year in bed with nephritis, a nasty kidney infection. One thing did help him cope with the mind-numbing agony, sadness, and misery was art. Eventually, doctors discovered a blood clot in his spinal column. It was high up in his neck and damaged the spinal cord, causing his paralysis. Had it been an inch higher, he would have died. An inch lower, and he would have minimal paralysis. He now is one of the most celebrated artists in the United States, sitting on a wheelchair. And keep working. And these are the huge portraits, famous portrait that everybody knows him around the world. Very admirable person. I would like to add a quote by Brian Sherwin, an art critic, blogger, curator, artist, and writer based near Chicago. He says, "Your stories pull out the very strings of what it is to be human, to be productive and resourceful, no matter what obstacle is thrown in your way. They also tap into what it is to be an artist, to have that burning need to create art no matter what is faced." I would like to wrap up my presentation by a quote of Picasso. "Colors, like features, follow the changes of the emotions." And at the very end, I would like to invite you, keep your smile and show your stress on the piece of paper. Thank you so much, Dr. Pepper.